Hi, welcome to Breathe Well Coaching. My name is Coach Erin. I'm an exercise physiologist, breathing coach, and a pelvic health corrective exercise specialist. Today, I want to talk to you about a breathing pattern disorder and a movement pattern disorder called hourglass syndrome, or upper ab gripping, or sometimes just called stomach gripping. First, I categorize this as a breathing pattern disorder because it's the most important thing that it's affecting is your breathing. It's not allowing you to access the respiratory diaphragm the way you want to for normal, optimal, functional breathing. So I look at this as a breathing pattern disorder, and I'm going to give you 4 steps today to help you overcome this disordered breathing pattern or a movement pattern. So gripping is going to be one of those things that you have to give time to address. So you've likely been doing this type of movement pattern or holding pattern for a very long time. So give yourself grace as you're trying to overcome this hourglass syndrome, stomach gripping, upper ab gripping. You're going to hear me call it a lot of different things today. But if you're here, you probably know what it feels like, and it's super uncomfortable. And what you're trying to do is you're trying to figure out ways to overcome this and how you can do small things and exercises, and that's what this video is all about. So this is going to be a 4-part series. I will try to give you as much information as I can, and we will do it progressively. So step 1 is where I want everybody to start. Step 2 is where you graduate to, step 3, and step 4. Now you might need to spend a really long time at step 1. I know for me, in overcoming this myself, I had to spend a lot of time here. And even as a maintenance plan, I sometimes have to go back to all these steps. So it is something that you will hopefully overcome and really get to a place where you're just managing it. I don't like to use the word cure. A lot of the things I help people overcome is anxiety, which I don't believe we cure ourselves from anxiety. I believe we learn to not suffer from it anymore. I also help people overcome prolapse, herniations, and these breathing pattern disorders that create some pain and dysfunction in the pelvic floor and the low back. So when we're looking at that as well, it's about managing and maintenance and being aware of it. So that's going to lead us to our first step. How do you overcome upper ab gripping, tightness in your tummy, not being able to relax, just overcompensation in those muscles? The first step is awareness. This is where today's video is going to start. You cannot overcome this if you're not really aware of it. And you're here, so likely you're aware. That's a really good sign. This is a great place to start. You've noticed, I can't get that satisfying breath. I can't get my ribs to open up. I feel very constricted here. Sometimes people get here because they might be having some other pain issues like neck pain, like low back pain, pelvic floor pain, prolapse, diastasis recti. Those are symptoms that can kind of worsen because of your upper ab gripping. So awareness is key. Knowing, when did it start? When did you first notice it is really important. You can have upper ab gripping if you're a mom, if you're a male, female, it doesn't really matter, because what I have seen more of, even more than pregnancy, this coming from after having kids, is I see it from coming from sometimes like body image issues or over exercise, those types of things, way back in your past. And so you start this gripping pattern kind of like this sucking in, which is a reverse breathing pattern, and kind of holding. So you've been told, hold your tummy in, or you think you need to hold your tummy in all the time. And at one point, even in exercise, because I've been in this industry a long time, the cue was always pull your stomach in. I still hear people saying that, and it's like, oh, if we're always sucking in, the pressure is going to be pushing down in the pelvic floor, out the low back. And if we never release that stomach, then we're never going to be able to get that functional, natural breathing pattern that we want. And inhale, expansion, exhale, draw in. And so awareness of kind of where this first started for you, I think is really important. For me, the first time I really noticed it was kind of exercising, running, cycling, those types of things. I would hold a lot, and I was doing that a lot. And then I really noticed it in that postpartum period. because when you're holding the baby, you're kind of getting more pressure up on this respiratory diaphragm. It's moving up into the rib cage a little higher. And sometimes we get this like gripping. And then in that postpartum period, if you're anxious, which I was for sure, I kind of held a lot here too. Now there's another layer of this that I also see, and those are people who have experienced a major trauma in their life, which is a lot of people. Whether it's an acute trauma, it happened one time, or it's complex, it happened a lot, kind of chronic trauma, they hold that trauma in the body. So you'll see sometimes this upper ab gripping from somebody who's had a lot of trauma in their life. So if that's you, so sorry that you're experiencing this. And I hope that this video and some of the things on my channel can be really helpful and healing to you. For me, I did have a trauma in my past, and I think some of my upper ab gripping was connected to that as well. So awareness, where did it begin? Now, that's your like past awareness, and you can sit down, write it down, really reflect on it, get an understanding of what you think, where it might be, become a detective of your body and how it's moving and maybe some of the compensation patterns you've created. But do that with grace, do that with love. Don't criticize, don't judge, don't be mean to yourself, because that's not really gonna help us in our growing and building the awareness so that we can actually make a change here. The next awareness piece is your daily holding pattern. So throughout the day, this is step one. First, you figured out kind of maybe where it came from. And if you don't know, that's okay too. Next, you're gonna start to drop in, be more mindful throughout the day, and notice when you're gripping. You can kind of greet it, like, oh, you're gripping again. I see you, okay? So we're gonna want to notice this, and quickly you'll be doing step number 2, because what do you do after you notice? I actually want you to take an intervention, and that's gonna be with the breath, and we'll get there in our next video. But I just want you to be able to, on a continuous basis, drop in to your physical body. It's almost like you're doing this. You drop in to your physical body, and you notice if you're holding. I'll give you some examples in my own life. When I was in my postpartum period, I had a ton of anxiety issues. I was having a panic attack. Our second child was born during COVID. And I'm trying to heal not only herniated disc, a multiple organ prolapse, I'm also trying to heal from a very intense labor and kind of that connection to the past trauma. That was a mess. I'm also trying to take care of young children. So here I am, sitting on the couch after a long day next to my husband. And I look over at him, and I've been teaching yoga and breathing for a long time. So I knew my breathing was off. I just went to all the doctors and nobody could really tell me what was wrong with it. But I look over at my husband, and his belly is just like soft, like hanging out. He is super relaxed. He's breathing, you know, in a good pattern. And then I notice, I actually like compare the two. I notice my body, and I am so pent up, especially in that upper ab area. I'm just sucking my belly in, and I'm not breathing very well. I don't even know if I was breathing. I was kind of having these short apnea, middle of the day apnea. So that was my first really connection with, oh my gosh, I'm holding so much tension in my stomach. This is not good. And then I noticed in the shower. Shower would be another place where I was like, why am I holding my belly in? Relax, lady. So kind of, you know, encourage myself, talk, just kind of like soften those muscles. And again, I'll give you what I want you to do when you notice, but I want to start here with these examples from my life. Another one was driving in the car, like almost anticipating somebody's gonna cut me off or something like that. So I held a lot, gripping when I was sitting down. I also noticed it a lot when I was making food for my children. So like you have to cut these tiny little pieces for young children, and I would cut these tiny little pieces, but I was like holding my stomach in and sometimes holding my breath too. So this is not a good type of retention. I do teach box breathing and retention work to help people overcome air hunger in my course and in my private coaching, but this was not the good type of apnea. Much like sleep apnea is not a good type of apnea. This is where I was holding, and it was creating more of that irregular breathing pattern. So the gripping was causing a lot of problems. I also think it was contributing to my low back pain, not the only thing, but it was also contributing to like neck pain. Gripping in my jaw was also happening as well, and sometimes you see that go hand in hand, where you're gripping in the tummy and you're gripping in the jaw. So this is going to feed that anxiety loop, it's going to feed that dysfunction cycle, and we have got to drop into the body and kindly become aware of how we're holding tension. And our muscles need to be able to relax and contract. We don't want them to hold in the middle. You know, I'm not going to be holding my bicep muscle at half tension all the time. If I do, usually a tight muscle like that is also a weak muscle. So even though they're really tight, they actually might be kind of weak. So the way that we do this, and that happens a lot on the pelvic floor as well, the way that we do that is we're going to release, and we're going to then activate. So the next 3 videos, the 4 steps are awareness, and you just learned that one, so good job. The next one is going to be breath work, because even before we do movements that are going to release, we need to get the proper breathing down. That's always going to be your intervention, because the breath is always with you and it can either be hurting or helping you. When you do this upper ab gripping chronically, usually we're not breathing very well. So breath is going to be your second step, and I'm going to give you a ton of information in my next video on that. Then the step after that is going to be myofascial self-release. So I'm going to teach you how to do some skin rolling and some other techniques that have been found very helpful for hourglass syndrome, upper ab gripping, stomach gripping, whatever you want to call it, right? Tightness here that you don't want. And we'll do myofascial self-release for that. Then the 4th thing we're going to do is to learn how to activate our deep core muscles. So when we're tight here, we're usually turned off here. This is where I'm still working on this, definitely, but I have learned so much in how to get the transverse abdominals, kind of that pelvic floor as well, all engaged, and to get this part of my core to work as well as some of the obliques and stuff like that too. So we're gonna work on deep core activation. And these are more corrective exercise movements, but I think you'll find them really helpful as long as you're doing them in this order. Remember, awareness is first, breathing, then we're gonna get into our release, and then we'll finish with activation. So thank you for being here. I hope this intrigued you. I hope this started to shed some light on this issue. And I'd love to hear your comments, your suggestions, and go ahead and check out that next video, part 2, part 3, and part 4 of this series. If you want to work with me privately, one-on-one, this is how I make my money at Breathe Well Coaching. I love to educate, but I also love to get into somebody's life and help them work one-on-one on what they're going through. So I offer 2 programs, Breathe Well, Live Well. It's a private coaching program for disordered breathing. The second program is Pelvic Health. This is for male or females, but most of my clients are females. And this is a breathing and wellness program for pelvic organ prolapse, diastasis recti, herniations, herniated disc, those types of things. So any type of pressure management issue. And again, I work one-on-one privately with those clients. If you want a free coaching session, there'll be a link in the description. Thank you for being here. Breathe well.